Today we are going to be making these two cards here. I've been super into vellum and what to do with it, and I've been really enjoying making these vellum envelopes and then these sort of one card pieces. It's like a different way to make a card, and I just thought it was really cute. And then for this one, it's I have here like a pearly piece of vellum, and so I made another envelope. And then in this case, I stuck these glitter winter trees on here. And I stamped the beauty of the season. And this one's a little reindeer saying happy holidays. So those are the two cards I have for you, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So let's get started.
So the first thing I did was I took a piece of vellum and I went ahead and folded it in half. This is actually the last piece of vellum that I have, so it's slightly pink, but just for demo purposes you could see what I'm doing here. Once I folded this, then I went ahead and cut it straight down the middle. And then as you can see, I ended up with this here. The bottom edge here, it's folded so I don't have to glue it. But on the other edges, I did go ahead and glue it with the Tombo glue. The one thing you want to do is be very careful how you glue this. You want to glue it to the very outside edge so that when you fold it and it bleeds over, it will only bleed a little bit and it won't get too deep into the center. And then make sure you do it on the other side as well. So one thing I did do was I went ahead and cut that top edge about a 1/4 inch off, just so that it's a little shorter. And then I went ahead and grabbed these foam stickers I got from Michael's and started to assemble the card how I wanted it to look. Now the funny thing with these is that once you figure out how you want to assemble it, you kind of like that. And so here I'm just mimicking what I did before, since it took me some time to put it together and decide how I liked it to begin with.
You know, these are already stickers, so then I'll just peel them off and stick them on there.
So now I'm going to go ahead and take my detailed scissors. I love these. I probably got these when I first started stamping, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those foam sticker edges off. They work really well, even across this adhesive here. And I'll go ahead and do the rest. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut that top half circle or half circle at the top, so we have that finger hole to get the card easier. And you can freehand this, but it is a little bit better if you try to draw it out first. So since I already did it, I'm going to go ahead and just mark the area where it should roughly be where I want it, in the center of the card. Then I'm going to go ahead and use my detailed scissors and go ahead and just cut that out. So now we're going to go ahead and make the card, and here you see I already cut out 2 pieces, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how I measured them, just so you have an idea. one thing you want to be sure is that the card fits into the envelope, and it's going to be smaller than the original size envelope. And the best way you could do this is just make sure it slides and fits really well, and that's a good test. So here I have, normally it would be 4 inches or 4 1/4, and so I'm going to make this a little smaller. There, can you see? It's like 3 and maybe 3/4. Sometimes you may even have to slim it down even more, but that should be pretty good. Lengthwise, it should be about 5.5 to 5 1/4. Here you see it's 5 1/4. I had cut the paper to be about 5 1/4, so that's what I'm aiming for here with the red. And then for the white, the inside frame part, I am going to just cut off 1/4 inch on the length and the width. That way it creates a nice frame. So now what I'm going to do is show you how I'm using this corner punch here. I didn't do it on the previous card, but I just want to give you guys an idea of what that looks like. Here you see your 4 corners and the different designs, along with a little bit of dry emboss on there. And you'll see what I mean when I punch it. So I still want sort of a sharper edge, so I'm going to pick the corner punch that I like the best for this. And you can see the back, what that looks like there. So you have to make sure it goes into the exact corner and fits before you punch down on it. There you can see what that edge looks like. It's pretty small, but it's just a little bit of detail. And I'll go ahead and do the rest. So this is just to add a little bit more to your card. It's completely optional, of course, but I like the effect. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to stamping. So what I'm going to do is gather my clear stamps. Here are my Hampton Art clear stamps, Christmas collection. And as you can see, I'll be using the stars, the reindeer, and happy holidays. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my clear block here. And this is a good size for my stamps. I'm peeling off the reindeer stamp. I'm going to start with that one first. And the easiest way to do this is to sort of lay it flat on the surface. Then pick it up with your clear stamp. That's a good way to make sure you don't stretch the stamp. Then I'm going to grab my Momento ink here. Tap the ink onto the clear stamp. It's a little easier if you tap the other way. And then go ahead and stamp my image. That turned out pretty well. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my sentiment, the happy holidays. And do the same thing. Pick it up with my clear block, ink it up, and stamp it. So now I'm going to get a black gel pen here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a snow ground. This way the reindeer is not floating in the air, but it actually has something to stand on. So now I'm going to go ahead and color with my Copics, and here I'm speeding it up just a little as I go ahead and color. So I love coloring this little reindeer Rudolph since his nose is so big, and I'll use R29 red for that. And then I'll go ahead and randomly color his ornaments on his ears or antlers. So now I'm going to go ahead and use B00, and I'm going to outline the snow just to give it some color. And I'll just want to stay under that black line so the marker doesn't bleed. And then we'll kind of go underneath the hoofs a little bit more. The reindeer's eyes are really tiny, so I want to make them a little bigger. And so I'm going to go back with my black ink pen and just draw in the eyes a little bit more. Here I'm making little happy eyes for the reindeer, but you can go ahead and use googly eyes or make them as big as you want. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the stars using this Stamping Spots ink from Stampin' Up, and I'm going to pull the mustard yellow here. So now I'm going to get my clear block again, and I'm going to pick the biggest star. There's 3 options there. So I'm going to go ahead and just ink that up and stamp it as part of the background. Here you're sort of freestyling, so you can go ahead and stick the stars wherever you want. Now I'm going to go in and grab a smaller star just so it's a little bit different. They're not all exactly the same. But I think now I have enough stars. I want to save them at the top because I'm going to stick a star, kind of like how I have it on my original card. And then maybe like the original, I'll do the edges just so it looks a little more continuous. I'm going to go ahead and leave room so if someone wanted to, they could write underneath the happy holidays. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to my background. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab 2 pieces of scrap paper here, and that's going to be the circles for my star at the top. And you'll see here I'm describing that same star stamp. I'm going to ink it up with that mustard yellow ink and stamp it on my little scrap papers. Then I'm sort of going to eyeball how I'm going to cut this. I'm going to use the envelope as an outline and then trace a slight half circle on the paper and then finish it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors and cut that out. So once I cut out my star and measure it sort of where I want it and how it fits into the card, I'm going to go ahead and trace it for the next one and then cut that one out. Then I want to make sure the card is going to fit into the envelope. So it turns out the card does not fit. It's just too tight no matter how hard I try. So I end up having to trim off the edges to make it a thinner card. This could have been avoided if I went ahead and just tried to fit the red card in before I glued everything down. And now that I have those corner edges, it's going to be really hard to cut. So here I'm just sort of stripping away at the sides. I decide I'm going to take off all the red, and I'm even going to cut off the corners, at least as far as here you can see I'm going to use a new red, but a new background, but I'm going to go ahead and cut those corners off. And luckily I did not glue them directly at those very edges of the corner, so here you can see I'm just sort of snipping them off. So now I'm going to see if it fits in the envelope, and luckily it does, but I'm going to have to cut it super thin. So there's barely any trim. This is not ideal, but we're going to make it work. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue the edges onto that background. Sort of like a deja vu here. And the nice thing with the glue is I can kind of move it around till I get the edges the way I want. Now I'm also going to go ahead and add the star at the top. I like putting it in the envelope so I could see what the end result looks like. So I'll glue it down here and then align it, make sure it's oriented the way I want on the other side, and then I'll go ahead and glue that down as well, and then just let it dry. So once it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of the envelope. I want the envelope to be a flat. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment onto the vellum. And I'm using my clear block again. Normally I would use a bigger block, but this one will fit. I'll just be careful of the edges. So this time I'm going to go ahead and use my Versa Fine Black ink. I really like this ink for sentiments only. It's super dark and comes out really well. As I stamp on here, I do want to be careful of smudging since it is vellum. This will take some time to dry. So now I'll have the inside of my card, and once it's dry, the envelope. And that's it.